So welcome to the start of this new mini-series for quick fixes in Photoshop on MyDesignClass. The aim of this series is to have a range of short videos that explain common errors, problems and mistakes that you might face in Adobe Photoshop. So without further ado, this first mistake that we're going to be covering is something that you probably won't face on a very regular basis, but can be very annoying if you don't know the immediate fix to it. Just before we begin, if you are facing problems like these on a regular basis and you don't know where to go, then do check out the playlist every once in a while to see if the problem you have has already been covered. So to demonstrate this first problem, I'm going to be going to the brush tool, or the shortcut for which is B, and I'm going to be going to the color picker and selecting a color. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to select this green and press OK. And I'm going to create a new layer because I don't want to draw directly on my background layer, just by pressing this small box with a plus in the middle. As you can see, we've created a new layer and I am going to draw. Now, as you can see, the immediate issue we have is that the color I've selected, which is green, is not being represented in the thing I'm drawing. Instead, it's coming out as gray. So the first thing we might do if we immediately notice this issue is we might go back and try and select the color again. But as you can see, I have selected a color. I'll just quickly change it and press OK, and as you can see, once again, I'm still not getting a direct color. So essentially the issue we're having here is that our image is set to grayscale, which means that no colors are actually being generated in the file. Rather, every color is just represented in a different shade of gray, white or black. So what we have to do is we have to change the mode of our image to be a color mode, to either RGB, which is red, green and blue, or CMYK, which is cyan, magenta, yellow and black. So to change the mode of our image, what we can do is we can go to Image on the top hand corner here. As you can see, if you look underneath at the tab which is open, you can see that grey is already included in the metadata here. And this is already the biggest hint that we have that our mode of our image is set to grayscale, which means that no colors will be produced. So what we can do is we can go to Image, Mode, and as you can see, you have a whole range of different modes that you can apply to your image to get various forms of color. The two I generally tend to stick to are RGB color and CMYK color. Or you can have grayscale if you want your image to be black and white. So we can select RGB color. It'll then ask us if we want to flatten the image before the mode change is taking place. Flatten will essentially mean that all of the layers that you have in your project file, so for example, if you have 20 layers, they'll all be combined into one layer, so they'll be merged. However, if you don't want your layers to be merged, rather you want all 20 to still appear as separate layers, you have to press Don't Flatten. In my case, I didn't want the drawing to be on the background layer, so I'm going to press Don't Flatten. Now, as you can see, there's no immediate change to any of the content on my image itself. It's still in black and white. So unfortunately, all of the changes I have made, I cannot recover them into a color file. This is why it's so important to make sure you set the mode properly when you create a new file. However, the biggest giveaway to indicate that this change has happened is the color picker. You can now see that it's no longer white and grey, rather we have the two colors that we've been selecting so far. So now if I draw, you can see it now produces a green line. Just to show you that it also works for CMYK, if I now wanted to change this mode to CMYK, I could go to Image, Mode, CMYK color. And then once again, don't flatten because I didn't want my layers to be flattened, but you can. And as you can see, the colors have now adapted to CMYK. They do look slightly differently. I will be making another whole video on the difference between RGB and CMYK at one point, so do stay tuned for that if you're interested in learning more about it. Also, as you can see, where it used to say grey in our metadata next to our file name, it now says CMYK. So if you're ever immediately unsure why your colors are looking different or whether it's in black and white, always take a look at the metadata quickly just to see if you're in the correct color mode. Now, of course, all of these things can be prevented nice and early on before we make all of these changes and then realize that we're in a different color. So what we have to ensure is that when we're creating a new file, we always select the correct color mode immediately. So just to quickly show you where you can find color modes when creating a new file, if we go to File and New, or as you can see, the shortcut is Command and N or Ctrl N for Windows. As you can see, when I'm changing all of the properties here, selecting my templates or adjusting the width and height myself, and as you can see, one of the options is color mode. And at the moment it's set to grayscale, so once again I fall into that trap. If I made any edits, it would be in gray and I wouldn't get the correct colors coming out. So if I wanted to change that, I'd have to change that here to RGB, for example, So to ensure that I avoid this error in the future, I'll always ensure that I set my color mode correctly before creating the file. So that in a nutshell was how to quickly fix any color mode issues that you're having, whether your image is currently set to grayscale and you'd rather add some color, or vice versa, you want your colored image to become a grayscale image without having to apply any adjustment layers to your image themselves. Once again, do remember to subscribe and leave a like on this video if you enjoyed the content. And once again, do check out the playlist of quick fixes if you're looking for any other quick errors that you need to have fixed within Adobe Photoshop.